The spark of war, the observation deck of the Horizon's Promise, offered a breathtaking view of the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez stood there, coffee in hand, watching the distant nebula paint the darkness with shades of purple and blue. She had made this route 43 times in her 12-year career. Medical supplies to the outer colonies, research equipment to scientific stations, and occasionally passengers who preferred the slow, scenic journey through space rather than the instant teleportation hubs that most people used nowadays. God, Elena loved these quiet moments. Space was peaceful out here, far from Earth's bustling orbital stations and the crowded trade lanes near the galactic core. Her ship carried 89 souls today, including crew. Families relocating to the agricultural colony on Harvest Moon. Scientists heading to the Deep Space Observatory. A few tourists who wanted to experience real space travel. All of them trusted her to get them safely to their destinations. She checked her watch. Another 6 hours until they reached the checkpoint near Crithian space. The Crithians were one of the older species in the Galactic Trade Network, a loose alliance of 47 civilizations that shared commerce, culture, and maintained peace through mutual benefit. Humanity had joined 30 years ago, welcomed as enthusiastic newcomers who brought fresh perspectives and surprising creativity to galactic society. The Crithians were different from most species. They were tall, easily 3 meters high, with crystalline exoskeletons that refracted light in rainbow patterns. Beautiful to look at, but cold in temperament. They valued order, hierarchy, and strength. Humanity's chaotic democracy and emotional nature puzzled them. Still, relations had remained cordial. Humans bought Crithian computational technology. Crithians enjoyed human art and music. It worked well enough. Elena's communicator chirped. It was her first officer, David Park. His voice carried an edge of concern that immediately put her on alert. "Captain, we need you on the bridge. Navigation system is showing anomalies." Elena set down her coffee and moved quickly through the corridors. The Horizon's Promise was not a military vessel. It was a civilian transport, comfortable and reliable, but not built for emergencies. The bridge was small, with stations for navigation, communications, engineering, and command. David stood at the navigation console, his hands moving rapidly across the holographic interface. "What's happening?" Elena asked, sliding into her command chair. "The primary navigation computer crashed about 10 minutes ago," David explained. "We switched to backup systems, but they're not syncing properly with the stellar positioning network. We're drifting off course." Elena felt her pulse quicken. Drifting off course in open space was dangerous. They were approaching the edge of Crithian military space, an area clearly marked on all galactic charts. The Crithians were protective of their borders, paranoid even. Every species knew not to venture into their territory without explicit permission and proper documentation. "How far off course?" she asked. "About 0.3 degrees. Enough to put us inside the restricted zone within the hour if we don't correct it. Then correct it manually. Override the automation." David shook his head. "The manual controls aren't responding. It's like something is blocking the command protocols." At the engineering station, young technician Sarah Chon worked frantically. She was 24, brilliant with computer systems, but this was only her 3rd deep space mission. Elena could see the sweat on her forehead as she typed commands into her console. "I think I found the problem," Sarah said. "There's a corrupted file in the navigation subroutine. It's creating a feedback loop that locks out manual control. Can you purge it?" Elena asked, "Working on it now." Elena watched the view screen. Space looked empty out here, but she knew Crithian patrol ships monitored everything within 1,000 kilometers of their borders. They would detect the Horizon's Promise soon if they had not already. She needed to send a message, explain the situation before things escalated. Open a channel on all emergency frequencies, she ordered. Let's make sure they know we're having technical difficulties. David activated the communications array. Channel open, Captain. Elena took a breath. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Civilian Transport Horizons Promise, registered with the Galactic Trade Network under Earth Authority. We are experiencing navigation system failure and are drifting toward Crithian space unintentionally. We mean no intrusion. Requesting assistance or clearance to pass through your border zone while we make repairs. She waited. Space communications were not instant at these distances, but they should receive a response within minutes. The silence stretched. Alana checked the navigation display. They were getting closer to the boundary. Sarah, how's that purge coming? Almost there. Just need to isolate the corrupted segment. And her console suddenly flashed with warning symbols. Red lights filled the bridge. Elena's heart sank as she recognized what was happening. What did you do? She asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Sarah's face went pale. I initiated a system diagnostic. Standard procedure when you're hunting for corrupted files. But something went wrong. The diagnostic activated a deep scan protocol I didn't know existed. David checked his displays. Captain, we're broadcasting a high-intensity sensor sweep. It's scanning everything within 500 kilometers. That's military-grade reconnaissance technology. Elena felt ice in her veins. Shut it down now. I'm trying. Sarah's hands shook as she worked. It's locked into the sequence. I need to let it complete, or force a complete system shutdown, which would kill life support. How long until it completes? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Elena stared at the view screen. The Crithians would definitely detect that scan. They would interpret it as hostile reconnaissance. She needed to explain, to make them understand this was an accident, a malfunction, not an attack. David, send another message. Tell them we have a system malfunction. Tell them the scan is not intentional. Make it absolutely clear we pose no threat. David sent the message. Elena waited, watching the countdown. The scan completed. Sarah successfully shut down the protocol. The bridge lights returned to normal. Elena allowed herself a moment of relief. Then the proximity alarm screamed. 3 ships decloaking, David reported, his voice tight. Crithian military configuration. They're surrounding us. The view screen showed them. Crithian warships were works of art, crystalline structures that looked like geometric sculptures but bristled with weapons. These 3 ships were patrol vessels, smaller than battlecruisers, but more than capable of destroying a civilian transport. Open a channel, Elena ordered. Let me talk to them. The screen flickered. A Crithian commander appeared. His crystalline face was angular, his eyes multifaceted like insect eyes, reflecting light in a way that seemed both beautiful and alien. When he spoke, his voice came through the translator, as cold and precise. Human vessel, you have violated Crithian military space and conducted unauthorized reconnaissance. This is an act of aggression. Asterisk, Commander, please listen, Elena said quickly. We experienced a navigation failure. The scan was accidental, a malfunction in our systems. We are a civilian transport carrying families and scientists. We have no military capability. This is a misunderstanding. The Crithian's expression did not change. Your vessel's hull composition includes military-grade materials. Your scanning protocol matches espionage patterns. Your explanation is rejected. What materials? We're a civilian ship. Your radiation shielding uses compounds that block our sensors. This is stealth technology. Elena felt desperation rising. That's standard radiation protection. Every ship has it. Please scan us completely. You'll see we have no weapons, no military equipment. We're just trying to deliver supplies and passengers. You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded, the Crithian said. Resistance will be met with destruction. We're not resisting. We'll comply with anything the communication cut off. Elena looked at David. Are they boarding us? David's face showed confusion. No, Captain, they're charging weapons. Time seemed to slow. Elena understood with horrible clarity what was about to happen. The Crithians were not going to board them. They were not going to investigate. They had decided the Horizon's Promise was a spy ship, and they were going to eliminate the threat. Emergency broadcast. Elena shouted. All frequencies. Tell them we surrender. Tell them the first plasma torpedo hit the engine section. The explosion tore through the ship's aft compartments. Elena felt the deck lurch beneath her. Alarm screamed. The lights died, replaced by emergency red lighting. She grabbed her console to stay upright. Asterisk. Hull breach in sections 9 through 14. David shouted over the noise. Life support failing in those areas. Evacuate those sections. Get everyone to the emergency pods. But there was no time. The second torpedo struck the midsection, where the passenger quarters were located. Elena heard the terrible sound of metal tearing, atmosphere venting into space. Screams came through the ship's intercom. Then silence as the compartments decompressed. The third torpedo hit the bridge. Elena saw the flash of light, felt the heat, and then nothing. 500 kilometers away, aboard the Crithian patrol ship, Crystalline Judgment. Commander Wexler watched the debris field spread across his view screen. Pieces of the human ship tumbled through space, along with frozen bodies and cargo containers. His tactical officer reported the results. Target destroyed. No survivors detected. Wexler felt satisfied. Another potential threat eliminated. The humans were newcomers to the galaxy, barely 3 decades as members of the trade network. They claimed to be peaceful, but Wexler knew better. Every species had secrets. Every civilization developed weapons. The humans were no different. That scanning protocol had been proof enough. Military-grade reconnaissance. Stealth-capable hull materials. Operating near Crithian borders. It was clearly an espionage operation. His duty was to protect the Crithian Empire from such threats. Record the incident in our logs, he ordered. Human spy vessel destroyed while conducting reconnaissance operations in restricted space. Submit the report to High Command. His crew complied efficiently. Wexler returned to his command chair. The Crithian Empire had survived for 6,000 years by being vigilant, by eliminating threats before they could grow. This was just another day, another duty fulfilled. He did not think about the 89 humans who had died. He did not consider their families, their dreams, their innocence. To him, they were simply casualties of galactic security, necessary losses in the eternal struggle to maintain order. The 3 Crithian ships cloaked and returned to their patrol routes. The debris of the Horizon's Promise drifted in the darkness, a silent testament to misunderstanding, fear, and the terrible consequences of assumptions. 20 hours later, the emergency beacon finally activated. It had been damaged in the explosions, but managed to send one message into the void. A distress call, a record of what happened, a final cry from the dead. That message reached Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station 6 hours later. The technicians who received it could not believe what they were reading. They verified the data 3 times before forwarding it up the chain of command. Within 2 hours, it reached the World Assembly in Geneva. President Catherine Reynolds was in a climate summit when her security chief interrupted. The look on his face told her something terrible had happened. She excused herself and followed him to the secure communications room. Madame President, we've received a distress beacon from the Horizon's Promise. Catherine felt her stomach drop. She knew that ship. Her niece's family was aboard, traveling to the Harvest Moon colony. What kind of distress? The ship was destroyed by Crithian military forces. There are no survivors. 89 confirmed dead. The room seemed to tilt. Catherine gripped the edge of the table. Why? Why would they attack a civilian transport? The preliminary data suggests a navigation malfunction led them into Crithian space. There was some kind of scanning incident. The Crithians interpreted it as espionage. Did Captain Vasquez try to explain? Yes, Madame President. Multiple messages were sent. The Crithians destroyed the ship anyway. Catherine closed her eyes. 89 people. Families. Scientists. Her niece, her niece's husband, their 2 children. Dead because of a computer malfunction and paranoia. Contact Ambassador Webb at the Galactic Council. Tell him to demand an emergency session. We need answers. We need justice. Yes, Madame President. Catherine sat down heavily. For 30 years, humanity had been peaceful members of galactic society. They had followed every rule, respected every boundary, embraced cooperation over conflict. They had deliberately chosen not to develop military forces, believing that the galaxy had moved beyond such things. But now 89 humans were dead, murdered without trial, without investigation, without mercy. And the species responsible felt justified in their actions. Something cold settled in Catherine's chest, a determination she had never felt before. Humanity had chosen peace, but peace required mutual respect. It required others to value human life as much as humans valued theirs. The Crithians had failed that. Basic test. Catherine stood and walked to the window. Geneva spread out below, peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere in this city, families would soon receive the worst news of their lives. Somewhere, children would learn their parents were never coming home. She thought about Protocol Sentinel, the secret that only 12 people on Earth knew, the insurance policy that humanity had maintained for 3 decades, hidden from galactic eyes. They had hoped never to use it. They had believed the galaxy was safer than that. Get me General Rodriguez, Catherine said quietly. It's time to discuss Article 7. Her security chief hesitated. Madame President, are you certain? Once we activate that protocol, 89 people are dead? Catherine interrupted. The Crithians think we're helpless. They think they can kill us without consequence. It's time to show them they're wrong. The message went out. Deep in classified facilities across Earth, in its hidden stations, protocols activated. Systems that had remained dormant for 30 years began powering up. Soldiers who had trained in secret received their orders. Ships that existed on no public registry prepared for deployment. Humanity had been peaceful. But humanity had not been unprepared. The Crithian Empire was about to learn a lesson that older, wiser civilizations had learned long ago. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never mistake peace for helplessness. And never, ever push humanity too far. The war had begun with a single blunder, a navigation error, and a panicked diagnostic. But it would end with the galaxy understanding the truth about Earth. Humans were gardeners by choice. But when their garden was threatened, they remembered how to be warriors. The revelation, the Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 47 member civilizations gathered in the massive circular hall on Unity Station, a neutral space station that orbited no world and belonged to no species. The architecture itself was a marvel, with translucent walls that showed the stars beyond and a floating central platform where speakers could address the assembly. Ambassador Marcus Webb walked toward that platform with measured steps. He was 56 years old, a career diplomat who had spent the last 15 years representing humanity in galactic affairs. He had negotiated trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific collaborations. He had always been the voice of reason, of compromise, of peace. Today, he would be something different. The chamber quieted as he reached the platform. It rose slowly, lifting him so that every representative could see him clearly. Marcus looked around at the assembled aliens. The bird-like Zephyrians with their brilliant plumage. The aquatic deep-home delegation in their water-filled spheres. The mechanical Centauri, artificial intelligences housed in elegant metallic bodies. And there, in their designated section, the Crithian delegation. Commander Vexlar sat among them, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. He looked completely composed, utterly confident. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, but forced it down. Emotion would not serve him now. Clarity would. Members of the Galactic Council, Marcus began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. 3 days ago, the civilian transport vessel Horizon's Promise was destroyed by Crithian military forces. 89 human civilians died. Scientists, farmers, engineers, teachers, and children. They were murdered without warning, without investigation, without mercy. Commander Vexlar rose from his seat. The crystalline Crithian's voice rang out clear and cold. The human vessel conducted military reconnaissance in restricted space. It possessed stealth capabilities. It was eliminated as a legitimate security threat. We followed proper defensive protocols. Marcus nodded slowly. You followed your protocols. You saw what you expected to see. You interpreted a navigation malfunction as espionage. You mistook standard radiation shielding for stealth technology. You received multiple messages explaining the situation, and you destroyed the ship anyway. The evidence was clear. Vexlar insisted. No civilian vessel requires such advanced scanning capabilities. Asterisk, it was a diagnostic tool that malfunctioned, Marcus replied. But you didn't investigate. You didn't board the vessel. You didn't give Captain Vasquez a chance to prove her innocence. You simply decided she was guilty and executed her entire crew. The council chairman, a floating jellyfish-like being called Elder Typhonus, pulsed with concern. Ambassador Webb, the Crithian Empire has submitted their official report. While the incident is regrettable, they claim justification under their security laws. What response does Earth propose? Marcus took a breath. This was the moment. Everything would change after these next words. Earth demands a formal apology from the Crithian Empire. We demand reparations for the families of the deceased. We demand an investigation into why proper protocols for identifying civilian vessels were not followed. And we demand assurance that this will never happen again. Vexlar's crystalline mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. And if the Crithian Empire refuses these demands, what will you do, human? Your species has no military force. You are classified as a non-combat civilization. You have no leverage, no power to enforce demands. You should be grateful we are even listening to your complaints. Several species in the chamber shifted uncomfortably. The Crithian Empire was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Their fleet numbered over 8,000 warships. They had conquered or absorbed 12 species over their 6,000-year history. Humanity, by contrast, had been members of galactic society for only 30 years and had explicitly rejected military development when they joined. Marcus looked directly at Vexlar. You gave us 72 hours to respond to your report. That deadline expires in 6 hours. Here is Earth's response. He activated his data interface. Text appeared on every screen in the chamber, translated simultaneously into all galactic languages. Earth rejects the Crithian justification for the destruction of the Horizon's Promise. The attack was murder, not defense. However, your actions have forced us to reveal something we hope to keep private for much longer. Marcus paused, making sure every representative was focused on him. When humanity joined the Galactic Council 30 years ago, we signed the Terran Accords. We agreed to classify ourselves as a non-military species. We promised not to bring weapons of war into Council space. We have kept that promise. Every word of the Accords has been followed precisely. Then you admit you are defenseless, Vexler said. His confidence was absolute. No, Marcus replied quietly. I said we kept our promise not to bring weapons into Council space. I never said we were defenseless. The chamber went completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of environmental systems seemed to fade. For 30 years, Earth has maintained a defensive force within our own territory, far beyond Council boundaries. We followed the letter of the Accords perfectly. We never lied. We simply never mentioned what we kept in reserve. Elder Typhonus pulsed urgently. Ambassador Webb, are you claiming humanity has hidden military capabilities from this council? Not hidden, Marcus corrected. Merely unmentioned. The Accords required us to register as non-military within Council space. We did. The Accords required us not to bring weapons into shared territories. We haven't. But nowhere in the Accords does it say we cannot defend our own territory and our own people. A Zephyrian delegate spoke up, her musical voice filled with confusion. But our surveys of human space detected no military infrastructure. No shipyards, no weapons facilities, no fleet bases. Marcus smiled without humor. We learned a long time ago how to hide things from sensors. Humanity fought 3 world wars before we unified. We developed nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons. We built submarines that could hide in the ocean depths for months. We created stealth aircraft invisible to radar. We mastered the art of deception because we had to. He gestured to the view screen. When we came to the stars, we brought that knowledge with us. We hoped never to use it. We genuinely wanted peace. But we also remembered history. Every human child learns about what happens to civilizations that are unprepared for violence. We decided to be prepared, just in case. Vexler's confidence was cracking. You are bluffing. If you had military forces, we would have detected them. Would you? Marcus asked. Your sensors couldn't even distinguish between radiation shielding and stealth technology. What makes you think they could find installations specifically designed to hide from you? He activated another display. Protocol Sentinel. That's what we called it. A defense initiative maintained for 3 decades by a rotating cadre of volunteers. Soldiers who trained in secret. Engineers who built ships in hidden facilities. Scientists who developed weapons they hoped would never be used. Marcus's voice hardened. You murdered 89 civilians. You refused to apologize. You called us powerless. You have 48 hours to formally apologize and agree to reparations. If you refuse, Earth will consider itself at war with the Qythian Empire. The chamber erupted. Species began talking over each other, their translators creating a cacophony of voices. Some expressed shock, others disbelief. A few seemed excited by the prospect of conflict. Vexler stood tall. The Qythian Empire does not negotiate with threats. We have 8,000 warships. Our military has existed for 6 millennia. Even if your bluff is real, even if you have some hidden force, you cannot possibly match our power. Marcus gathered his documents. 48 hours, Commander. Choose wisely. He stepped down from the platform and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the council dissolved into chaos. But Marcus didn't look back. He had delivered his message. Now it was up to President Reynolds and General Rodriguez to prove it wasn't a bluff. On the Qythian homeworld of Crystallos, the High Council convened in their obsidian tower. Supreme Commander Vexler, leader of all Qythian military forces, listened to Vexler's report with growing concern. They claimed to have hidden military forces, Vexler explained. But our intelligence shows nothing. No fleet, no bases, no weapons production. The human is bluffing to save face. Vexler was older than Vexler, his crystalline structure showing age cracks that refracted light into complex patterns. And yet he seemed confident. Humans are emotional creatures, but this ambassador showed no fear. Why? Pride, Vexler suggested. They cannot accept their weakness. Perhaps. Vexler pulled up tactical displays. But consider this. Humans unified their world after devastating wars. They developed impressive technology in remarkably short time. They went from primitive combustion engines to faster-than-light travel in less than 300 years. That is unprecedented acceleration. What are you suggesting, Supreme Commander? I am suggesting we take their threat seriously. Mobilize the Third Armada. 5,000 warships. Position them at the edge of human territory. If they truly have hidden forces, this will draw them out. If they are bluffing, the sight of our fleet will force immediate surrender. Vexler bowed. A wise strategy, Supreme Commander. The humans will see our might and realize resistance is futile. But as the orders went out, as 5,000 Krithian warships began gathering for the largest military deployment in recent history, other species watched with different emotions. The smaller civilizations, those who had felt threatened by Krithian power for generations, wondered if perhaps the humans might actually challenge the Empire's dominance. Asterisk on Earth? President Catherine Reynolds stood in the command center beneath Geneva. The room was vast, filled with holographic displays showing every human colony, every defensive position, every ship in the hidden fleet. General Maria Rodriguez stood beside her, a career military officer who had spent 30 years preparing for a war she hoped would never come. The Krithians are mobilizing their Third Armada, Maria reported. 5,000 warships. They'll reach our outer territories in 72 hours. Catherine studied the displays. Are we ready? As ready as we can be. The Sentinel fleet has been activated. All ships are moving into position. Our commanders are experienced, well-trained. But Madame President, we're still outnumbered. 5,000 Krithian warships against our 3,000 vessels. Quality over quantity, General? Maria smiled grimly. That's the hope. Our ships are newer, faster, equipped with technology the Krithians have never seen. Our crews have trained extensively against simulated Krithian tactics. We know their formations, their weaknesses, their predictable patterns. But a real battle is different from a simulation. Catherine thought about her niece, about the 89 people who died on the Horizon's promise. She thought about humanity's choice 30 years ago to pursue peace while maintaining the capability for war. That decision had been controversial. Many argued that building a hidden fleet was dishonest, that true peace required complete disarmament. But the architects of Protocol Sentinel had remembered history. They remembered civilizations conquered because they couldn't defend themselves. They remembered that predators exist, and sometimes good intentions aren't enough. Give the order, Catherine said quietly. Activate all Sentinel assets. Make sure every ship, every station, every weapon system is ready. When the Krithians arrive, I want them to understand exactly what they've awakened. Across human space, things began to happen. Research stations that appeared to be studying stellar phenomena suddenly opened hidden bays, revealing warships that had been docked there for decades. Asteroid mining operations in remote systems activated defensive platforms that emerged from hollowed-out rocks. Satellites in orbit around human colonies powered up weapon systems that had remained dormant for 30 years. And in the dark spaces between stars, in regions marked as empty on all galactic charts, thousands of ships came to life. The Sentinel fleet had been stationed there for 3 decades, hidden by advanced stealth technology, maintained by rotating crews. waiting for a threat that might never come. Now the threat was here. Admiral Jonathan Chun commanded the flagship TDF Prometheus from a chair he had occupied for only 6 months. He was the third admiral to hold this position, part of the rotation that kept the Sentinel fleet operational while maintaining secrecy. He had trained for 15 years for this moment, studying every aspect of Krithian military doctrine, every battle they had ever fought, every tactic they employed. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. The fleet is at full combat capability. Jonathan looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Krithian armada. 5,000 ships in the classic Krithian hammer formation. Heavy battle cruisers at the center, destroyers forming a protective screen, carriers launching fighter craft. It was a formation that had won countless battles over 6,000 years. It was also predictable, rigid, and vulnerable to unconventional tactics. Send a message to all ship commanders, Jonathan ordered. Remind them of the rules of engagement. We fire only in defense. We give them every opportunity to withdraw. But if they attack, we respond with full force. His communications officer worked quickly. Message sent, Admiral. Jonathan settled back in his chair. He had studied Earth's military history extensively. He knew about the battles where outnumbered forces defeated larger armies through superior tactics, technology, and training. He knew about ancient warriors who had held narrow passes against overwhelming numbers. He knew about naval commanders who had sunk superior fleets. Through clever maneuvers, humanity had always been good at finding ways to win when logic said they should lose. The Krithian Third Armada entered human territory with absolute confidence. Commander Vexler, given field command by Supreme Commander Vexler, studied the sensor readings with satisfaction. Human colonies lay ahead, poorly defended, easily intimidated. Once the colonists saw 5,000 warships, they would pressure Earth to surrender immediately. Anything on sensors? He asked his tactical officer. Negative, Commander. No military vessels detected. Some civilian traffic, a few cargo haulers, nothing significant. Vexler felt vindicated. The humans had been bluffing. Their ambassador's confidence had been nothing but desperate bravado. Maintain formation. Proceed to the primary human colony world. We'll position ourselves in orbit and demand Earth's surrender. This will be over within hours. But as the Armada moved deeper into human space, something strange began happening. The sensors started showing anomalies. Brief flickers at the edge of detection range. Energy signatures that appeared and disappeared too quickly to classify. Technical problems? Vexler asked. Unknown, Commander. The readings are inconsistent with known phenomena. It's almost like the tactical display exploded with contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Ships materialized from nowhere, dicloaking simultaneously across a three-dimensional battle space that surrounded the Krithian formation. Vexler stared in disbelief. Where did they come from? The answer came across all frequencies. Admiral Chun's face appeared on every screen in the Krithian fleet. Krithian Third Armada. This is Admiral Jonathan Chun of the Terran Defense Force. You have entered human territory with hostile intent. You have refused to apologize for murdering our civilians. This is your final warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Vexler quickly checked his sensors. The numbers kept climbing. 3,000 human ships, all armed, all positioned perfectly to enfilade his formation. Impossible, he whispered. This is impossible. Where were they hiding? Commander, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked urgently. Vexler's pride would not let him retreat. The Krithian Empire had never backed down from a fight. To withdraw now would be to admit weakness, to shame 6,000 years of military tradition. All ships battle formation. Prepare to engage. We outnumber them. We have superior firepower. We will destroy these human upstarts and teach them their place. Admiral Chun watched the Krithian fleet shift into attack formation. He felt sadness settle over him. He had hoped they would be reasonable. He had given them every chance to withdraw. All ships, he said quietly. Execute Protocol Phantom. Weapons free. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human fleet didn't charge forward in a traditional battle line. Instead, half the ships simply vanished again, their stealth systems reactivating. The Krithians fired at empty space, their weapons hitting nothing. Then the human ships appeared in different positions. Behind the Krithian formation, above it, below it, attacking from angles that shouldn't have been possible. Human destroyers moved with impossible agility, accelerating and turning in ways that defied known physics. They fired missiles that split into dozens of smaller projectiles, each one independently guided, each one finding weak points in Krithian shields. They used laser weapons that bent around obstacles, electron beams that disabled electronic systems, and kinetic rounds that punched through armor like paper. But the most devastating weapon was information warfare. Human hackers penetrated Krithian computer systems within minutes. Communications became unreliable. Targeting computers showed false readings. Shield generators flickered and died at crucial moments. Life support systems malfunctioned, creating panic among crews. Commander Vexler watched his carefully organized formation dissolve into chaos. Ships collided with each other, trying to evade the human attack. Captains received contradictory orders. Weapon systems locked up or fired at friendly vessels. How are they doing this? He demanded. No one had an answer. The Krithians had never encountered an enemy like this. Every species they had fought before engaged in honorable combat, ship against ship, formation against formation. The humans fought like predators hunting prey, appearing and disappearing, coordinating perfectly, striking weak points with surgical precision. A human destroyer materialized directly behind Vexler's flagship. 3 missiles hit the engine core before he could even issue an order. His ship lurched, atmosphere venting from ruptured compartments. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. Damage report. Engines offline. Shields at 20%. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the screen again. Commander Vexler, your flagship is crippled. Your formation is destroyed. You've lost over 1,000 ships in the last 2 hours. Surrender now, and I'll allow your surviving vessels to withdraw. Continue fighting, and I'll destroy every ship in your armada. Vexler looked at his tactical display. It was true. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had devastated his fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours ago now tumbled through space as burning wrecks. The legendary Krithian Third Armada, which had conquered worlds and defeated empires, was being dismantled by a species that supposedly had no military pride warred with survival instinct. Finally, survival won. All ships, Vexler said, his voice hollow. Cease fire. Withdraw to Krithian space. The remaining Krithian vessels disengaged, their jump drives activating, carrying them away from the battle. They left behind debris fields, escape pods, and the shattered remains of Krithian invincibility. Admiral Chun stood on his bridge, watching them go. His crew wanted to celebrate, but he felt no joy. Too many had died today, human and Krithian alike. War was never glorious, no matter how decisively you won. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. The Krithian armada has been repelled. Our territory is secure. Casualties: 42 ships lost, 108 damaged. Estimated Krithian losses: 1,300 ships destroyed, 800 damaged. Across the galaxy, every species that had been watching received the battle reports. The impossible had happened. The peaceful humans had defeated one of the most powerful military forces in galactic history. And they had done it with the efficiency that terrified everyone. The Galactic Council convened again in emergency session. This time, when Ambassador Marcus Webb entered the chamber, every representative stood. Some in respect, some in fear, all in recognition that everything had changed. Members of the Council, Marcus began, Earth did not want this war. We offered peace. The Crithian Empire chose violence. You have now seen the result. We ask again, will the Crithian Empire apologize for murdering our civilians and agree to reparations? In the Crithian section, a new figure rose. Not Vexler, who was in disgrace, but Supreme Commander Vexler himself. The ancient warrior looked at Marcus Webb with something that might have been respect. On behalf of the Crithian Empire, I formally apologize for the destruction of the Horizon's promise. We acted in haste and paranoia. We murdered innocent people. No justification can excuse this. We will pay reparations to the families of the deceased. We will ensure this never happens again. The chamber was silent. A Crithian apology was almost unprecedented. Marcus nodded. Earth accepts your apology. We also propose new terms for galactic society. The Terran Accords are dissolved. Earth is reclassifying itself as a defensive military power. We will no longer hide our capabilities. But we also establish the Terran Peacekeeping Force. Any species that feels threatened by a larger power can request human protection. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. Smaller species throughout the chamber looked hopeful for the first time in their membership. The era of might making right was ending. A new order was being born. President Catherine Reynolds addressed Earth that evening. Humanity has revealed itself today, not as conquerors, but as protectors. We fought because we had to. We won because we were prepared. But we take no joy in victory. Every life lost, human or Crithian, is a tragedy. We hope the galaxy will learn from this. Peace is precious. Life is valuable. And those who forget these truths will find that humanity has a long memory and an iron will. On a memorial wall in Geneva, 89 names were carved in stone. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew, scientists and families, dreams cut short by a terrible mistake. But their deaths had not been meaningless. They had shown the galaxy what happened when peaceful people were pushed too far. They had ignited a war that changed everything. And from their sacrifice, a safer galaxy was being born. Asterisk.